Hello, Nick family. Stephanie, aka Queen, Creative Dope Soul Sports Talk, here in my weekly spot on the Queen's Court, nothing but Knicks, where I got my start. And as always, we have a lot to talk about. We're gonna do a review of last week's game when we played Boston and Indiana, and then we're also going to preview tonight's game against Cleveland. Let's bring in the crew. Lady and the Chef, two Nick's Chicks, Tony Crow, Nicks and Bruises. I went to the dentist today, so this side of my face, my right side, is still a little numb. So if I start slobbering and what have you, listen, give me some grace, and let me know in the chat on the panel so I can fix myself up. All right, Lady and the Chef, Tony Crow, how you doing?
I'm well. Glad to be here. Love when I get to talk about Knicks every Monday, and plus the Knicks play tonight. So very excited to be here today.
No doubt.
Peace, Queen. Peace, Chef. Shout out to the chat. Yo, Black, it's time. Feeling good. Feeling good. This should be a test for both teams.
Yeah, for sure. Let's just do a quick review of last week's games before we deep dive. We played Boston first game of the season. A loss, beat down, whatever you want to call it, 109 to 132. That was in Boston, first game of the season. Their ring ceremony. We'll get more into it. Then Friday we played the Indiana Pacers, returned the favor to them. Sorry, Indiana, but you had to take care of business. We beat them 123 to 98 against Boston. Miles McBride and Jalen Brunson, but just trying to, share the video, the picture love. Miles McBride, 22 points. Brunson also had 22 points. Carl Anthony Towns led us in rebounds in that game with 7. Campaign and assists with 4. The team didn't shoot bad, 55.1% from the field, 36.7% from the three-point line, and 75% from the free throw line. And then versus Indiana, Jalen Brunson led us in scoring with 26, but it was really balanced. If I'm not mistaken, OG had 14, Hart had 20. I think Towns and Bridges both had 21. And then again, Brunson led us with 26. Carl Anthony Towns with 15 rebounds. Mikal Bridges and Brunson had 5 assists. And again, the Knicks shooting, 52.4% from the field, 44.4% from the three-point line, and 79.3% from the free throw line. And that includes 90% from Towns, who went to the line 10 times and made 9 of them. So let's just get back to the panel. Um, what stood out for you offensively? Good, bad, or indifferent? Lady in the Chef, we'll start with you, Tony, and then we'll reverse it next time around.
Yeah, offensively, it seems like we had a couple of guys who checked in, as we say when they check into the chat. Mikal Bridges seems to have found his rhythm, which was great to see.
Mhm.
He looks really confident, back to his usual self, back to the usual schedule program.
Mhm.
And Josh Hart, who was like, I don't know and I don't have any idea, for him to figure it out. And he looked very reminiscent of what we're used to seeing from Josh Hart. So the fact that
Mhm.
he was back to his rebounding self, not hesitating to take the shots. He didn't hit many as far as the threes, but the fact that he was willing to take them speaks volumes. And that's what I'm looking for Josh Hart for this season is when you're open, take the shots. Bet on yourself. Teams are going to dare him to shoot. I want to see
Mhm.
Josh take those shots and shoot. I mean,
Mhm.
and man, Deuce McBride, I think Deuce needs to stick with the braids. You know how I am about my superstitions. If he sticks with the braids, leaves the rock and roll mullet back, corn roll it up, Deuce three. You can tell Deuce McBride has worked on that three. He looks very confident and
Yep.
comfortable. And I think Carl Anthony Towns is showing us why he belongs here on this New York Knicks team. Their rebounds look efficient and strong. He's spaced out the floor really well with the threes.
Mhm.
And Jalen Brunson doing Jalen Brunson things. But so far, I like what I'm seeing offensively, and as well as the contributions from campaign. I like the confidence and that veteran experience that he brings to this Knicks team, as well as on the defense from him, especially.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely agree with that. What's your thoughts on just the overall flow of the the offense? Are you liking what you're seeing in terms of how we're moving the ball, player movement, or do you still think we have some work to do?
No, and you know what? That's one of the things that I did notice. The ball movement was excellent. I thought the Knicks moved the ball. They were playing unselfish ball. And if we recall back from last year, that's what worked for the Knicks when they moved the ball and made that extra pass.
Hmm.
Someone was open and we was able to get the shot that we wanted instead of
Right.
the defense making us rush to take a shot they wanted the Knicks to take. So the
Mm-hmm.
fact that they were moving that ball around that perimeter, I loved it. And I think if the Knicks stick to that, they're going to be highly successful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tony, what stood out for you on offense?
Uh, the versatility, the many different ways that we could score. Um, I think Cat spent a lot of time in the paint in the second game. I like that. He only took two threes, which I think that'll go up. But you know, what I mean, he made the two he took,
Right.
and then Bridges as well, like in the post. You know what I mean, like a new dynamic of offense that we haven't really seen from our teams. So that in particular, um and we haven't really peaked yet. I don't even think we're
No.
scratching the surface of who we can become. You know what I mean? Like as well as we passed the ball or shared the ball, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
Our assists were relatively low. You know what I mean? So I think that's gonna really come around at some point, or at least I'm hoping for it. You know what I mean? It's not a concern yet, but I just chalk that up to they haven't scratched the surface of the peak of who they can become with all the gelling. I think they're really playing off of talent.
Yeah. For sure. Not to nitpick, but I'm really, in terms of what's to come, I really want to see them more of the two-man game between Brunson and Towns. I just really think that there is more to be exploited there in terms of making it difficult for the opposing team. That, to your point, we're just not there yet. There was times when somebody would have the ball on the wing, Cat would be in the post, that person would take the three. Like, what? I think Josh Hart did it. I'm like, come on, Josh Hart.
We
It's not
we
even like you a sniper, you know?
and we really only saw it consistent in one game, really in one quarter in the preseason,
In the
right?
preseason,
Like
correct.
so I don't know if Tibbs is kind of like trying to hold that, tuck it in, you know what I mean? But I think we'll see it more and more. To your point, I think it could be a staple, like of something that's really unstoppable. So I hope he's not trying to, you know, use it sparingly
Right.
when it could really help us dominate.
Yeah. It doesn't just help those two. It helps the those who are spaced out to the corner as well get open shots depending on how the defense plays it, right? What was the difference, if any, between the Knicks offense versus Boston and offense versus Indiana? Again, if there was any.
Ooh, ooh. Oh, I mean, obvious.
Me, pick
The standout was the 3 point shooting. I mean, 10% for Indiana, 3 for 30, which is like anomaly, and then as well as the Celtics shot, I think that's could be considered an anomaly as well. So it's like two opposite ends of the spectrum, and you know what I mean. That being the deciding factor in my view for the most part.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I felt like the Knicks rushed. They just settled for okay. There was a couple of times on possessions against Boston where they just came down and just chucked up one shot. There wasn't even a pass to the
Right.
left or the right wing, players. So
Yeah.
you can't allow teams to dictate what kind of offense you're going to play and make you rush or slow down too much. You have to play Knicks basketball. And Boston just looked like they were playing against some middle school, high school team. The way they were running the Knicks around, dragging them up and down the floor. I said, what's going on here? I mean, the Knicks just look, and it didn't even, to me, it didn't even necessarily look like the Knicks were physically tired. They just looked like they were letting Boston dictate how they were going to play that game. And there was just too much settling. They weren't taking the ball in enough, and you can't allow that to happen against any team in this league.
Right.
they were
Yes.
only playing the initial defense. You know what I mean? Once they got past the initial stop, you know what I
Right.
mean? Everything else was a failure. Whether it was two, three, or four passes, it was going to be an open shot.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And you know, don't get me wrong. The Boston is a really good team. Obviously, that goes without saying, right? NBA champs. They were on a heater, and it's hard. I think the Knicks has something to do with it, though. I think the Knicks has something to do with it in terms of just not closing out, not getting up into them so that they can feel you and disrupt what they wanted to do offensively. So I'm not gonna say this was just Boston being great. The Knicks has something to do with them being great. But Boston is just this team, everybody on that team can hit the three-pointer. Everybody on the team. And they're very aggressive. They not passing it up. If they open, they're hitting it. And the thing about it is Brown and Tatum can also drive. So you got to be careful. Like, so you closing out real tough, then they drive. Now your defense is in rotation. That just opens up open shots for the rest of the team. So they're a tough cover. Um, but like I said when I did the pregame show, I mean the post game recap, the Knicks don't have to beat Boston to beat Boston. Like you don't have to like be a mirror image of them to beat them, right? So the next time we meet them is going to be in February. We would, we'll have definitely have more chemistry and continuity by that time. And then from February to the end of the season, we played them 3 times. So we'll have a really good sense of where we stand against them and the rest of the Eastern Conference. But I agree. I thought against Indiana, the offense flowed better, even though we were efficient. We shot pretty well against Boston,
Hmm.
right? We shot pretty well against Indiana, but the offense just looked better against Indiana. Anything else to add about the offense before we move on to the defense?
I just
Oh,
think the Knicks have to be really quickly. I just think the Knicks have to be a lot more disciplined. Like going back to what you were just saying about Boston, championship teams are very disciplined. They're poised. They don't get too high. They don't get too low. They don't allow other teams to. They may have an off night here and there, but for the most part, they're not going to allow a team to make them rush their offense, fall off on their defense. And the Knicks have to, as each game goes by, each week, each month, you got to get better and you
Right,
want to stay consistent as well. But you have to have that, not only the basketball IQ, but you have to become a disciplined unit together as a team,
right,
and not just make some hasty, oh, I'm going to just chuck up, shots and, the passes you want to make and the timing of the passes and,
right.
little things like that. So I want to see the Knicks work on becoming a lot more disciplined, whoever they're playing, whatever opponent they're going against. So I think that that's something, especially on the offense, you have to become more disciplined.
Shout out to Eddie Ray. What's up, Steph and Tony? I'm the one that got the flagship in Atlantic City. Yo, where you at, man? We've been trying to get back to Atlantic City for a minute for the draft party for Sim. I'm the one that gave you the really good sour beer. Salute, Eddie Ray. Appreciate you dropping in, and don't be a stranger. We've been trying to get back to Atlantic City. I'm not sure what happened. But
yeah,
reach
I
out to
remember
Sim,
Eddie.
see what we can
Salute.
do. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, we'll talk about it more when we get into the player spotlight. But to your point about getting what you want, I like the fact that Towns, and I went over even in Boston, I went over every one of his shots except for that turnaround fadeaway that he took over Drew Holiday. Most of his other shots, all of his other shots, I believe, were in the key. I noticed that against Indiana as well. Like he's real patient when he gets the ball in the post, and he's taking the shot he wants, which is in the key, and it's fine. He's not Shaq. Like he's not gonna get you in the key, back you down, and dunk over you. But if he gets in the key and then he shoots his turnaround jumper or whatever or his hook shot, I'm good with it. Just be in the key, and that's what he's doing. We'll talk about him and the others when we get to the player spotlight. I just want to show this. This is super early, but right now the Knicks are third in offensive rating at 123.4. I'm just giving y'all a little taste of what we're going to be doing as the weeks go on. This means nothing. It's just, um it's just 2 games. All right. Let's start talking defense. We gave up, what was that? 100 and how many points we gave up? Well, anyway, the Knicks right now are ranked 29th in defense. Now, 2 games. Everybody relax. I expected the Knicks to be a top half defense. I want to say top 12 um defense, but we got work to do. And I think that was skewed from Boston, right? I think we gave up 98 points against no. Yeah, Indiana, right? I think we
Hmm.
just gave up 98 points against
Yep.
Indiana.
98. Yep.
All right. What stood out for you defensively versus Boston? And what did you see different when we played Indiana, Tony?
Um. Well, for Boston, like I said a second ago, like that second or third pass, that's all they really needed. Once somebody got into the paint to get an open shot, you know what I mean. It was really no second and third effort. That was better in Indiana. I mean, it wasn't perfect. A lot of that had to do with Indiana missing too, but it that was the big difference for me defensively, and then the focus on rebounding between the 2 games. I mean, Cat came out with the monster 15 rebounds in game 2. I think you had him at 7. I think he had 8, but either way, it's whether 7 or 8, it ain't enough. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, those are the 2 things for me: defensive rebounds and yeah, I lost my train of thought. Whatever I said first.
Okay. All right. Lady Nichelle, what stood out for you defensively between that first game versus Boston and the second game versus Indiana?
Well, for Boston, for sure, the lack of defensive rebounds, offensive rebounds to give us second, third chance opportunities weren't there against Boston. I thought we didn't even forget a box out. They didn't even have an opportunity to do so because Boston was grabbing that ball so fast and flying up the court. I mean, it was incredible how quickly the pace was. It almost reminded me of how maybe about 2 games, especially one preseason game the Knicks played against Charlotte, how the pace was so fast. I was like, whoa, and you can tell also by how high the score was. But I just thought defensively, the Knicks, they weren't even able to set up defensively because Boston was just up the floor so fast. The Knicks were trying to, at some points, they was like, we might as well just stay down here and just get ready for whoever's going to take it out, and we're going to get ready for go back on offense for ourselves. But what I saw against Indiana was the Knicks were able to box out. They were able to grab boards. I thought Carl Anthony Towns exuded himself more and was more of a presence, as well as Josh Hart. We know that's what he do. He can get rebounds, um, and I think he's gonna definitely come through more aggressively with that as well. But I thought the Knicks did a good job of holding. The defense was good because only one guy, I think Matherin, was the only one who had, I believe, 20 points in a game, and everyone else maybe had 13, 15 points. But I thought the Knicks just did a good job imposing their will and wanting it more against Indiana
Right.
defensively. They just looked a lot more aggressive. So
Yeah.
if they can keep that up, I'm happy because my preach this whole season is defense.
Yeah.
How much did Halliburton have?
0.
Yeah, he didn't score anything.
Yeah. He was 0 for
Yeah.
8 from the field, and I want to say 0 for 7 from the 3-point line, if I'm not mistaken. Um, Listen, the second and third effort was there. Helping the helper was there in that Indiana game. And one thing, just to quickly go back to Boston, once a team or shooter gets hot, you could be up into them. You could do whatever you want. It's too late. They hot now. They a flamethrower. You could be right in their grill. They're gonna hit it. And a lot of those shots for Tatum, it's not. I'm not gonna say every single one, but there were some in which a play was really close, hand in his face, and it made absolutely no difference because by that time he was hot. You know,
Yeah, and then it's hard to come back down and focus on I mean, that's where that discipline part comes in. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? But even in that, you know what I mean? Like it was really, to me, it wasn't the offense per se. It was the defense. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it was the rebounding and not getting the second chance points and just getting, you know what I mean? Like that's where they need. That was their bread and butter. I didn't know if they could get back to that. That was my biggest question after the game one. Like, can they get back to that rebounding and second chance points and you know what I mean, the things that carried them last year. You know what I mean? Like um I didn't think so, but then they come back in against the Pacers and I'm like, oh, maybe they just have to make it a conscious effort, a focal point. You know what I mean?
I wonder if that's going to be the next identity. The Nick, if that's going to continue to be the Knicks' identity. One, the Knicks are a much more efficient team this year through just 2 games, just 2 games. So there's probably going to be less offensive rebounds to go around if you're hitting your shots. Um, but two, Carl Anthony Towns, I think he had four or five offensive rebounds in that second game. Josh Hart, gave you three. It's going to be interesting to see if the Knicks continue what I like to call play the volume game. That was them last year.
Mm-hmm.
We're not a good shooting team, but we're going to take a lot of free throws. We're going to take a lot of threes. We're going to take a lot of field goal attempts. We're going to take more than the other team. So even though we're not hitting them well, we're taking more than you. We're going to make up for it.
But Queen,
Hmm.
the that's part of why I was so concerned because they had 30 more 3 pointers than us and 20 more shot attempts
Right.
than us. You know what I mean?
That's that
And
our
that
whole game. That first.
so I'm
Yep.
like, if we gotta kind of still get back to that mentality. Like even they were getting offensive rebounds, so that was killing us as well. So you know what I mean? It's not just offensive now; it's just rebounding. Period has to be a focal point.
I agree with you. I'm just curious to see whether we're going to continue to play the volume game this season without Isaiah Hartenstein, without Mitchell Robinson for now. Or are we going to be an efficient team? And where not necessarily we don't get second chance points or we don't get offensive rebounds, where it's not a must. Like last year, that was like a big part of our. You could look, we
Mm-hmm.
lost. Oh, look, we only had five
I,
second
I,
chance points.
Right.
Right, that was such a big part of how we score, right? I
what,
wonder
what
if it's going to be different this year.
what do you think would dictate the change? Like because that was like I was really thinking about this for a couple of days as well.
Yeah.
But what would be the is it the personnel or is it the
I think it's the
mentality?
person. I think it's the personnel. I think it's the personnel in the sense that um, we're going to be a better shooting team. We might be a better shooting team. I think last year we were when it came to 2-point field goals, we were a bottom ranking team. I
Mm-hmm.
think in terms of 3-point percentage, we were really good, and that helped raise our overall percentage. But outside of threes, the Knicks just weren't a really good shooting team. I think that might change this year. Same thing with free throws. I think we're going to be a better free throw shooting team as well. So even if we don't get there as much, we're going to make more when we do.
That's
When we
true.
do get there, and I just don't think we have those rough and tough offense. I don't think Towns is a really good defensive rebounder. It remains to be seen if he's going to continue to give us 3 and 4 and 5 offensive rebounds a game. If he does, that's great. But if it's not him, it's just Josh Hart.
Yeah.
I mean, OG's gonna have to step up. You know what I mean?
Oh, gee, what
Mikel's gonna have to step. Like that's what I mean. Collectively, that's gonna have to be the mindset.
Agree.
I think we're gonna have to either win the 3 point attempt battle or the total field goal attempt battle. Like one of like we can't be behind on both.
on both.
And yeah, so something's got to give. We can't
Yeah,
just rely on efficiency because we seen you could do that and get smacked.
yeah. You can't take like 12 less shots than the other team or whatever it is. Um, Defensively though. Wingstop didn't look like Wingstop when we played Boston, right? And I'm not going to just put it all on them. I think it was just total team effort. Um, did McHale and OG look better to you versus Indiana? And if so, in what way?
I mean, Mikal was on Tatum to start the Boston game, right?
Mhm.
He had Halliburton. That's a large difference in opponent. You know what I mean? No shot this time. Like I've been taking shots for a couple of days on Halliburton. You know what I mean? But it's a large gap between their talent. So he had his assignment dropped tremendously. And even in that Boston game, not saying it would have made a huge difference, but I always would assume um OG would be on Tatum just because he's a little bit stronger. You know what I mean? He's a little bit like able to carry that load.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
not that Brown is a slouch because he's strong too, but I think
Right.
that would have been an easier matchup for um Bridges. So that stood out to me from jump. But then again, they did say he was getting the toughest assignment night in and night out in Macau, and they like OG as a help defender where and he has been successful at that. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like you called it out the other night. You know what I mean? Guarded two or three guys on one possession. That's because he's not on the main guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I think it's by design.
Yeah. And he's just different. He's just different. There was just a deflection, and he got his hand on the ball, and everybody was in a line, and the next thing you know, he was just off to the races. But he has this sneaky quickness, you know. Next thing you know, he was off to the races for the dunk on the other side. I'm like,
Even
wow,
when he died for he tipped the ball, dived for it,
right.
and just secured it. You know what I mean? And got the pass out or whatever.
Yeah,
But I'm like,
he's
"Gee."
different. Yeah, he's different. Yeah, I guess that's what Tibbs is doing. I think Mikal Bridges is good guarding down 1-2 more so than guarding up. Like
Yeah.
fours, to your point about Tatum, but apparently um, Thibodeau and the coaching staff like that scheme better, putting him on the best defensive player on the other team, offensive play, excuse me, and just having OG roam.
And just like we're saying with the game one, game two, it's early for the coaches too. So
It's
you know
early
what I
for the
mean. They
coach.
want to get a look at
Point.
something to start off with. You know what I mean. Down the line, they want to get a look at something else. You know what I mean. So it's still early for the coach to kind of. This is new to them. You know what I mean. This is new players, new additions. Just like the players are new to each other, the coach is new to them as well, as far as the collective. So yeah, he's experimenting. I'm sure.
Yeah, for sure. Let's talk about the bench. I got Josh Hart here, even though he's starting, because there was some rumblings prior to the season that Josh Hart should probably come off the bench if obviously right now the Knicks are tight as far as players are concerned. It was only an 8-man rotation, so we can talk about that as we talk about the bench as well. But from what you saw from Josh Hart these first two games, and then the bench overall, do you think that the bench is okay the way it is? It seems like it's Campaign, Sims, Miles McBride, and Tibbs was running two starters, OG and Mikel Bridges, with the second unit. And he mixed it up a little bit, but to me, I saw that as the main one.
Mhm.
Do you think that's okay as far as the bench is concerned, or you can't wait for Precious to get back to possibly take the starting spot so Josh Hart can help fortify the bench? Just what's your thoughts on the bench and what I just said, Lady and the Chef, and then Tony.
For me, I think it depends. I think Tibbs needs to take it matchup by matchup, game by game, because it depends who you're playing against. Some
Mhm.
games I think Precious to be very resourceful, and in other games I think Josh Hart is going to be a valuable asset starting for this team. So I think it's depending on who we are playing. Both of them, you can go with pressure starting and utilize Josh to come off the bench with the rest of the guys. I think I've said this already that there's a small asterisk for me when it comes to the Knicks bench. And I do
Mhm.
think that Josh should be a huge, huge asset coming off that bench. But then I think that there's some other matchups that we may play against other teams where I think you should have Josh starting and then have Precious coming off the bench. So I just think it depends on the matchup. But I also think that going back to what Tony was just saying, one of the things for me that I'm looking forward to and I'm going to be watching is I know it's still early, but as we get deeper into the season, Thibodeau's decisions as far as, if you're going to have Mikel on that harder matchup, do you sometimes call in and say, you know what, we only played this team 3 times. Mikel's been on that player. Let me have OG in. Because sometimes you got to throw different angles at the other team.
Right,
They're not going to expect that. So
right.
I'm looking for that from that discipline and shot calling from Tibbs as the coach to switch up sometimes the defensive matchups, the different rotations for offensively as well. But I think that in some games, and again, Josh had 20, but I'm not expecting Josh. I remember you, Queen, called me out on this. That's not his role to give them 20 points a night. So I'm not expecting that. Is he capable? Yes. But I do think that Josh is more than capable of giving this team 20 rebounds. I mean, excuse me, 10 rebounds and
Right.
to give you at least 8 to 10 points as well.
Hmm.
So if he continues looking for his shot, great. But I think that there's going to be some instances where he's going to be needed to come off that bench because we're going to need that spark so that way the starters can continue to get their rest because that's another thing that I think we as fans are going to be watching for is the minutes. And if Tibbs is going to allow guys, which I know this is a whole nother conversation, but I didn't understand why we had the starters in so late in the game, when we were up by 25 points. But I just think that I'm looking for that shot call and decision making from the coach as far as matchups defensively and offensively, and your route that Tibbs is going to go as far as starting Precious or starting Josh.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So,
Tone,
well, I just to piggyback, that's one of the main reasons. Like, I'm looking forward to whenever Precious is back. You know what I
Right.
mean? Because somebody's minutes is gonna decrease, and he's versatile enough that multiple guys' minutes are gonna decrease. So, you know what I mean? Just to have that balance. And then with Tibbs leaving them in so long, it just like I definitely was feeling the same way. My only thing was maybe he's just trying to get them accustomed to what the normal rotation is gonna be. You know what I mean? Like just building those habits now. But I
for
definitely
sure.
was definitely was concerned at like 25.
Right.
Um and then some coaches got that philosophy, I gotta wait till you take all your starters out. You still got starters in, you know what I
But the
mean? But
starters, their starters was out, but
yeah, no, for like 2 minutes.
yeah, but he did start taking them out at 6 minutes. There was a time
That's
they
true.
would play down to 2 minutes, and then he would start taking them out. So at least it was at least 6 minutes, where he started taking them out. The only thing I would say is that things come at you fast in the NBA. So you start taking your starters out at 8 minutes, their second team go on a little run,
Hmm.
then the next thing you know, here come their starters back in the game because the momentum has shifted with enough time for them to come back in. So I think,
And
after
you,
coming off that beat down, you really want to make sure that you secured this. Even 6, I thought was a bit early for
mm.
Tibbs, to be honest.
No, for Tibbs for sure. And when I was thinking that, part of me got a fly bothering me. I was when he finally did take him out, I did realize it was still early for him. You know what I mean? That's why I didn't make a big deal out of it on any pods and that.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on OG and Bridges running with the bench? Do you like that?
At times, yeah,
Um,
I think it'll help. I mean, regardless, you're going to have some starters running with the bench. But yeah, I think those two for sure.
Because you're able to feature Bridges. I like that.
hmm
Exactly.
And he's
I mean,
thriving.
yeah, I mean, he'll get shots in the starting unit as well. But you could tell, at least in Indiana, they were looking for him.
Hmm.
Um, actually, so like to have him, and we talked about this in the
Hmm.
preseason, to have
Hmm.
him in that second unit. and that's just his. He's the lead guy. He has the support of McBride. McBride shot. Sims is a placeholder in my opinion, but at least the rebounding was there and the effort, is there, and campaign. You know, I know in the preseason somebody said campaign is going to be situational, and somebody else said campaign is going to have something to say about that, and he's speaking loudly, right?
Mhm.
So I kind of like that second unit, and I got to be honest, I wouldn't be mad with that same second unit if Precious replaced Sims
Hmm.
and instead of starting. I
Hmm.
don't think I would be mad at that.
And I mean, number one, Precious alongside OG
Mm,
is a phenomenal defensive tandem. Like that, we've seen that,
right.
from last year. The numbers don't lie. Um, about Mikhail, if you notice, that's when he kind of turned his stuff around in the Boston game when he got those minutes with the second unit. You know what I mean? So when you having a bad game, like he was, that gives you an opportunity to kind of go after it to find your shot, as opposed to just finding your shot within the flow of the game. So, and I think he's gonna thrive in that role. You know what I mean? Especially coming from being the main guy for a year and a half in
Mhm.
Brooklyn and knowing what it takes, and then or learning what it takes, let's say, but now having that same opportunity with against second unit guys.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's just stay on let's just stay on Bridges because he was my player spotlight, and you two can have different player spotlight, and we'll talk about whoever you want to spotlight as well. 2 games, 18 and a half points, 3.5 assists, 60% from the field, 40% for three, only 60% from the free throw line, but that's an aberration. He's a really good um, free throw shooter. And when it comes down to it, in terms of us Knick fans giving him the business, it really was just one bad shooting half, which was the first half against Boston. He was 7 of 8 in the second half versus Boston, and he was really good against Indiana. We saw his ability to score in the post, to score in the mid range, which we already knew, and to hit the three, which we already knew. And he can also hit the three. He can bring the ball up the court and just pull up for three too. That's something he does well. His bag, like you said, Tony, it's been a year and a half of being a number one guy. This role that he's in right now is mad easy for him. Right? He probably like, oh, this what you want me to do? Lead the second team, play behind Brunson or Towns or Whip Towns or ahead of time, however you know, however we want to say who's the second option or not. I think this is easy for him, his role with the Knicks. Let's just talk a little more about Mikal Bridges and then whoever else you two want to spotlight.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna kind of piggyback off of what Tony was saying. I thought he made a great point just now. What Mikel is able to do for this Knicks team is what this Knicks team needs. You need someone who's going to be aggressive and could give you points outside of Jalen Brunson and Carl Anthony Towns. And last year, that role kind of fell on OG Ananobi at times, where there was somewhat of a dead space offensively on this team, and like there was really nothing happening. And then you would see like OG would finally, get the ball and he would take it and he would get a pass and he would just, it's almost like he was like, yo, let me take it inside and get a rebound, to get a nice layup or get an easy dunk, because there was really nothing happening. Maybe like Randall wasn't, certain possessions wasn't going after it as far as scoring. Maybe Brunson was kind of like, trying to facilitate more on certain possessions, and wasn't really getting anything. But I think
Mhm,
I know there was some concern as far as like us losing uh, Debo and losing Randall, but I
mhm,
think that people forget exactly what you were just saying. Mikel Bridges' bag is very wide and deep.
mhm,
I mean, he can give this Knicks team. He can post and toast. He can and bully ball. Don't let his frail frame fool you.
Yeah.
It's like KD. He's a frail guy, but he can score at will. And
Hmm.
that's what Bridges can do for this Knicks team. And I think that this Knicks team, they need a player like that, as well as my player spotlight is Cameron Payne. You don't have to score a whole bunch of points for me to say, oh, see what he did? He gave you 20 points. It's also what he does defensively. He
Right.
forces guys, he rattles them, he forces you to turn the ball over. You get rattled, you get it out of bounds, you want to complain to the ref. And he's going to bring that energy that we need. Again, when there's a dead space offensively and nothing's happening, Campaign is going to come out there and give you chuck up a three. He's going to drive to the basket. He's not afraid to get contact. And that's another thing that I think is going to be a nice weapon and an added weapon rather for this Knicks team is we have a group of guys who's going to be willing to take the ball more to the basket. I don't want to see the Knicks settle so much, but we know you guys could shoot the three.
Mm-hmm.
But there's going to be times in games where we need guys to really take the ball to the basket aggressively. And hell, if you don't make it, get fouled while trying and get to the free throw
Right.
line.
Right.
So,
Right.
Campaign, Mikal Bridges, they both can do that for this team.
Yeah. Anybody else you want to spotlight, or was Mikael Bridges your spotlight, Tone?
Mikhail was pretty much mine. I've been, you know, waiting for the moment, but I kind of got everything out amongst what you guys said as well. Like, but yeah, I'll just reiterate the post up aspect. You know what I mean? That is like such a beauty. Like I forgot how much we missed it because we haven't seen
Right.
uh any type of real post up game. You know, Randall a little bit when he first got here. It kind of declined over the years, but yeah, that aspect is a beautiful thing to watch. And we talk about just their energy, and you know what I mean. I know I was texting you about Brunson going at the crowd,
Yeah.
talking about the refs, and then Mikal, talk about Halliburton, get him off me. He can't guard me. You know what I mean? So just to see that fire and desire this early to game two, you know what I mean? They was just ready to bounce back from that first one.
Yeah. I think, we're gonna get into the Cleveland game tonight, but next, Bridges, you don't have to employ him or encourage him to be assertive like with OG. That's just part of his makeup. That's just how he plays basketball. He's assertive and he can take over a game. And he's comfortable taking a crunch time shot because we saw him do that in Brooklyn. So he's really shaping up. When I saw him play, I was like, yo, this dude, he might turn into that guy. I think this is just the beginning. And like I said, the Knicks have this front office has been really good at getting guys before they pop. Randall, which was the other front office, Brunson, Devo had a career year with us. Bridges might be next. Bridges might be next. And we might be looking at them draft picks and saying, wow, we stole this guy, you know? But again, that remains to be seen. The only play I want to say something about really quick, he was a close second for me, was Carl Anthony um, Towns. I just like the fact that he's taking his shots in the key. He's being real methodical. Like I said, two things I want to see from him is recognition and patience. Recognition of when you need to be taking these big guys out, when you need to be taking these small guys into the post, and patience in terms of getting the shot you want, not just what they've given you. And he's been super patient um, on the offensive end. His defense was better against Indiana. I still think he has some ways to go. I thought his defense was better, and the rebounding. Listen, he only had 7 or 8 rebounds, but that was in like 24 minutes, right? They didn't play a lot. I like his rebounding as well, and even when he's not scoring, you still have to tend to him, and that just creates a lot of space for everyone else. So it was just good to see him get off to a good start. And Towns has yet to scratch the surface too of what he like. This guy can hit the three. He can drive to the basket. He has actual post moves. He hasn't even scratched the surface of what he can bring to this
and
team.
and and we haven't touched on his pass. He hasn't, peaked at his
Absolutely.
passing either. You know what I
Right.
mean? So
Right.
there's just a whole bunch of stuff that's
Yeah.
to look forward to.
Yeah. Like Lady and the Chef said earlier, we not there yet, but you can see signs of what's possible um, with this team. All right, let's move on. The Knicks play. Are we at MSG tonight?
Let me see.
I think so.
Okay. Well, we play Cleveland tonight, 7:30.
Yeah.
Somebody check. We are. Okay.
Mhm.
Um, at MSG, these are the starters. I don't think there's going to be any changes for the Knicks. Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, Josh Hart, OG Anunoby, Carl Anthony Towns for Cleveland, Darius Garland and Donovan Mitchell at guard, Dean Wade and Evan Mobley. Evan Mobley has gotten better, you know, since last season, just from what I've seen. And then Jared Allen at center. Same team, so they have the chemistry and continuity. As far as the roster is, not a lot of turnover, but they do have a new coach,
Mhm.
so that I think changes things a little bit. What's your keys to the game? And then we'll get into what matchup um you would like to see. What's your keys to the game? We'll start with you, Tone, then Lady in the Chef.
Um,
Shout out to the chat,
win
but
win the 3 point battle.
mm.
Win the 3 point battle.
Efficiency or attempts
Um,
or both.
both. Both. If I'm being greedy, but the fact that I think we're a good shooting team, I'll say attempts because that you know what I mean because we shoot well enough that the percentage will handle itself. You know what I mean. So I'll say win the attempts. Um, win the rebounding battle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean. Win the turnover battle or possession battle.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, just the things that we've seen in the past. I want to see how much of that sticks. You know what I mean? How much of that remains our calling card.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point. Lady in the Chef, any keys to the game for you?
Yeah, for sure. I'm a stickler for defense, so the Knicks definitely got to guard that perimeter. We know Cleveland could shoot the three.
Yeah.
And then I want to see the Knicks get guys like Mobley and Allen in foul trouble. Though they're too. It's funny because I said this last year. I'm like, and it's funny because I just said this about Mikal Bridges. Like, they're two lanky guys. Take it. Cat should be posting and toasting, as Clyde would say, in the paint.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
should have your way against them. I'm not saying that they're just gonna, allow him to do whatever he want to do, but you should be able to do what you want to do against
Right.
the two of them. And it's funny because they have a very old school style of play. When I watch them play, they give you the hook shot, they give you the simple, you know, 2 pound dribble, and then they go in and give you the shot that they want.
Hmm.
But I want to see the Knicks get them in foul trouble. You got to contain Spider as some shape or form. You got to stop him, and then I don't want to see other guys like Ty Jerome, Karis LeVert come into
Hmm.
the Garden and have a career point scoring high of 40, 50 points because guys love to do that when they come to the Garden. So
Hmm.
don't allow those other guys who, can give you those points, but are not known to do that, go off tonight. And as well as Garland, you got to stop him as well. So definitely the defense has to be on point on the perimeter and get them in foul trouble and take it to them in the paint.
Yeah, they're ranked just 19th in 3-point attempts through 3 games. They're 3-0, by the way. Um, they take about 34 threes a game, which is ranked 19th. Like, wow. But but they're second in efficiency. Through 3 games, they're shooting 43.7% from the 3-point line. Now, the teams they played are not defensive juggernauts like Toronto, Detroit, and Washington, right? So I'm not sure how much resistance they've gotten, from the 3-point line, but they're shooting 43.7%, third in the league right now. And the Knicks are, excuse me, second in the league right now. And the Knicks are third in the league right now in terms of 3-point percentage at 40.4, tied with Phoenix, who's also 40.4%. And neither one of these teams take a lot of threes compared to the rest of the league. The Knicks are ranked 28th in the league in 3-point attempts. To your point, Tone, I don't know if this is just us ramping up as far as the volume is concerned, 3-point shooting, because I have to go back, but I'm sure we took more than 28 3-pointers, and we were definitely ranked much higher than 29th. Excuse me, we're 28th, than 28th in attempts, right? The Knicks are attempting 28.5 threes per game. Maybe there's a changing of the guard as far as our offense is concerned. I don't know. It remains to be seen. But similar to Cleveland, we shoot a very good percentage, but we don't take a lot of threes. Um, yeah. As far as my keys to the game, I want to continue to see player and on offense, player and ball movement. Um, I also want to see them take advantage of mismatches. You
Yeah.
know, if Towns has the mismatch, keep going back to him. You
Mhm.
know, if Brunson has the mismatch, keep going there. Like just wear it out. Make the other team adjust to you. And then
Right.
when they make their adjustment, that's going to open up something else for somebody else. You know, I just thought um there was I forgot what game it was. Cat had the mismatch. Oh, Drew Holiday. And we didn't go back to it as much as I thought, we should. To Tony's point, definitely you gotta win. They got 2 7-footers in that starting lineup.
Right.
You can't get out rebound. You can't
Mhm.
give up second and third opportunities at the basket. So Cat is a really good rebounder. OG, eh. Mikal Bridges, not so much. Mikal Bridges is not even averaging one rebound a game. And I was like, Am I reading this wrong? It's 2 games. He's averaging zero point 0.5 rebounds per game.
Yeah.
Now I get it. He's a guard, but still,
But still, right.
but still,
Right.
right? I'm sure McCullough, who probably hasn't even played yet, is probably averaging about a half
Right.
a rebound a game, right? So we need our guards to rebound, and Carl Anthony Towns is going to need more help. Josh, I'm pretty sure, is going to, as always, be on the boards. But we need OG on the boards. We need Mikal Bridges on the board. We can't get out rebounded
Yeah.
um,
Sure.
in this game. And our 3-point defense, they don't take a lot of them compared to the rest of the NBA teams. But when they do make them, they're hitting them at like 43% or 42%, right? So our perimeter defense has to be better. Our 3-point defense has to be better. And I don't think we have to talk about effort with the Knicks. Um, you know, but yeah, that's pretty much what I have. Is there a matchup you're looking forward to? For me, I'm looking forward to Towns and Mobley. I don't think they're gonna have Jared Jack on Carl Anthony Towns. If they do, this is when I would like to see Towns above the 3-point line,
Hmm.
shooting threes, driving to the basket, where Allen has to move his feet and possibly get into foul trouble. I'm not saying that Carl Anthony Towns can't get off a good shot against Jared Allen if they have him on if they have Jared Allen on him. He probably can. But I think the biggest advantage is pulling Jared Allen out to key to the 3-point line, which is why I think they're going to have Evan Mobley on him. And every Evan Mobley on him, that's barbecue chicken. Take him right down in the post. I mean, he's a 7-footer or 6'11" or what have you, but he's not strong at all. So that's my matchup to watch. Carl Anthony Towns, Evan Mobley. What about you, Tone? And then Lady and Chef, do you have a particular matchup you're looking forward to?
That's a good one. I thought. I mean, for the defensive side, I'm looking forward to OG on Mobley, guarding Mobley, and seeing what that looks like. Um, we didn't even talk about you know Josh Hart potentially injured. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Deuce,
that's right.
Deuce. as well. So you know, what I mean, if one of them is, if Hart is out, is Deuce starting, that would be a good matchup.
Yeah,
Whomever he's on, you know what I mean. Um, and then if they're both out, I don't know if you want to touch on that before it's time, but
yeah. We can talk about it after the matchups. Yeah, we could definitely do that. And we didn't even talk about Bridges and Donovan Mitchell,
mm-hmm.
right? I think that's going to be
Yep.
interesting as well. But yeah, let's get into that before we close out. So,
What was the injury exactly with Josh?
Oh, oh man, ankle. What's it called? I can't. I don't remember, but it's something with his ankle. Even though during the game he was holding the back of his like leg, almost like almost like a hamstring, but it could be because me and Shuttle talked about it last night. And it's basically you need rest to heal it. You know what I mean?
oh,
It'll
Mhm.
give you sharp pains. You know what I mean, up your leg. So that might have been what he was doing, feeling them sharp pains or whatever. But I mean, he had the game of his life, and it seemed like whatever happened to him happened in the first quarter. You know, not game of his life, but you know what I mean. Like he had a hell of a game, and he played through it. So if he could play, I assume he's gonna play.
Right.
But at the same time, knowing what we've been through last year, and knowing we already down some guys as well, I wouldn't mind if he took the day off. You know what I mean? If it's gonna get him whole.
yeah. This is kind of something. This is similar to what we dealt with last year, where there was complaints about the Knicks piling up the minutes. But the reason why the minutes were being piled up was because guys were going down with injuries. So we played eight. We got like a minute or so. We played eight last game. I wonder how you guys feel about that. But other than Josh Hart, who played 37 plus minutes, everybody else played 34 and below and
That's
under.
right. That's
And
right.
so even though we only played eight, I think that maybe it was the three bench players that got more minutes. And then also because it was a blowout, some of those minutes also went to some of our situational players who are not in the rotation. So like I'm not tripping over the 8-man rotation. I think I don't see anything wrong with keeping it tight right now, where people know who they're coming in for. They know what as you're trying to,
Hmm.
get your rotations, down and what have you. I think it'll go back. I'm pretty sure it'll go back to 9 when when Precious comes back. But just your thoughts on the 8-man rotation.
I just agree with what you said. The 37 minutes was the highest. I mean, everybody was at a reasonable number. So all in all, by the end of the game, everything took care of itself. You know what I mean? Like, and if I would have guessed without looking at the stat sheet, I would have thought they played more. You know what I mean? So it's just the Knicks fan PTSD. You know what I mean? It just looked like they played more, but you're right. 37 was the highest, and like it is what it is. He's
Right.
gonna play the guys he trusts and the guys he thinks give us the best shot to win. You know what I mean? Once the game is secured, I'll share some minutes. You know what I mean? Get some guys some reps, but that's what it's gonna be.
I just think Tibbs needs to utilize last year as a learning lesson. Like when we had such a huge man down situation, and we had to the bench players had to be forced to be starters, and those C players had to force to be right behind the bench. I think that we need to use that as a learning lesson that if you have injuries, like we were so fortunate that Jalen Brunson was able to remain healthy for the most part of the regular season last year. But I think that it would be wise and smart to give guys like Daddy A. Kolick, Huck Porty, a little bit more than 4 minutes when we can to get them in the groove of being able to contest against those Western Conference and Eastern Conference matchups. And, this way you can pull them in and you know that they'll be ready to compete. Not that they're not, but they'll be able to, know what they're facing against. So I think we just need to go to that a little bit more just because we don't know come January, February, who we're going to have, readily and available to help us get through the second half of the season.
I
Are you
agree.
willing to do that at the expense of chemistry, continuity, and possibly wins? Like, how would you do? Like, I get what you're saying. Give them some time now because we're gonna need them. We may need them. Down the line. But when would you give them the time? Would it be garbage time? Would it be just a regular part of the rotation? How would you like to see it?
I feel like he needs to give them like kind of how he did Deuce McBride when he was tuggling back and forth between G League and the regular the Knicks. But I think that I mean, 2 minutes is not enough. 4 minutes, it's okay. But if you can give, like try situational matchups where you have Kolick and Brunson on the floor and maybe give Deuce a little bit of resting time. And it's no shade to Deuce. We know what he can give us, but just to give him that playing time to be under his mentor, Brunson, and get that time and have Huck Porty sometimes playing on the floor, maybe not necessarily at the same time as Cat, but just to, maybe with pressures, just to give them a better feel of like, okay, I'm not necessarily playing with the bench and the C group of guys. That's different when you're playing with the guys who are situational versus when you're in this is the real deal. You're playing with the starters and the bench unit. So I would
Mhm.
like to see him if he can, like maybe certain games give, one of the guys 5, 6 minutes here, space it out so this way, like you said, they're ready for when we may need them in that second half of the season. We don't know who, God forbid, suffers an injury, and now Tibbs is looking at the end of the bench. Damn, I don't know who I'm gonna put in.
Right.
Nah, come in, come on. I know what you could do. I'm trusting in you. Do what you need to do. Stay poised. Get out there, run the plays, and be ready. Stay ready.
One more question for you and Tone. If you're giving him 6 minutes or whoever it is, who are you taking those 6 minutes from? Because in order to give one of those guys 6 minutes, that means somebody who's better than they are getting six less minutes or few less minutes. Tony, your thoughts?
Um, well, like, so for me, I want him to be more precautionary in a sense. Like, if Josh Hart is questionable, how about just sit him tonight? You know what I mean?
Right.
And then that is an opportunity for maybe one guy to kind of get an increased role. He's not gonna get all of Josh Hart's minutes, you know what I
Right.
mean? But he could get a portion of them. And then like with a Huck Porty, whatever Sims is getting, let's say it's 20 minutes, maybe split them 10-10 and kind of let them see who's, you know what I mean, who's doing more. But I think that'll come with time. I don't want him playing them all together. You know what I mean? I definitely like the idea of um, definitely like Kolek playing with two starters. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
One of them being OG. You know what I mean? Like so maybe he could kind of open up something in OG to kind of, you know what I mean, him being the least aggressive of the starters, you know what I mean, or maybe with Josh Hart as well. Like so, I do like the idea of mixing them with starters, so there's less pressure on them. You know what I mean. There's more talent around them, and then you could really kind of see where they might be at their best.
And there's not a lot of pressure on them.
Right.
Because I think you do want to put them in a situation where what they give you is a boost. You're not counting
Exactly.
on them. But if they give you something, it's a boost. And if they don't, it's okay.
And
We
they're
don't
not asked to
need
do
to
something that's not their strength.
that's
Part of
not
it.
their strength. And so that they can't really grow. I said this before. I think that was the issue with Grimes. Like Grimes was put in a situation where he couldn't even grow as a young player because we need you to hit this shot so we can win. I think he was just put in a terrible position. And I think I want our rookies when they do get in the game, a deflection, a key shot, a key rebound.
Yeah.
We don't need you to be all world. Just give us a little boost, you know? All right, let's get to this and then we out of here. The Knicks are playing. It's 7:32. Tip off is probably around 7:40. All right, we play Cleveland tonight. We play Miami Wednesday. We play Detroit Friday. These are very early stats, but Cleveland is second in offensive rating and fourth in defensive rating. Miami is 20th in offensive rating, 16th in defensive rating, and Detroit is, what is that, 15th? I can't even see that. In offensive rating and 26 in defensive rating. Take these ratings with a grain of salt. It's only 3 games. Knicks right now third in offensive rating, 29th in defensive rating. This is where you can find me Thursdays on the Just Nick and the Weekly Show, the Cutting Room Floor Sundays. It's not even Sundays noonish, it's Sunday-ish. Sometime on Sunday, even though I couldn't do it yesterday. And tomorrow, lunchtime, I'll be doing the game recap. Tony, Crow, Nicks and Bruises, Mondays, 1 p.m., Wednesdays to be determined. Hit that notification button. Subscribe to his channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification button so you'll know when he does go live. Lady and the Chef and Diva Locks 21, two Knicks chicks. They have shows Thursdays at 7 p.m. Is it 6 or it is 7? Thursdays at 7 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. Subscribe to the channel. You can go to YouTube, right in the search bar, put in two Knicks chicks, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification button. Really dope content on Thursdays and Sundays. They also cover the Liberty, who won an NBA championship. That's why you see the foam green, sea green colors on our screen as a salute to the Liberty for winning the championship. Jeff, who wasn't with us today, but he'll be back. He has a sports blog, a daily sports blog, Happily Ever Clafter. The link will be in the description, and also he's a panelist on the Just Nick and Ed weekly show. Any last words?
3-0.
I was going to give my predictions. I was going to say I got them 2-1.
2-1. Who we got? Detroit, Miami, and Cleveland. 3-0. Man, we going through. Let me listen. This is a tough 10 games with a shortened roster, new players, losing Shamit and who was it? Precious right before the season. Man, if the Knicks come out of this 4-1 after 5 games, that would be impressive. Nick P said it looks like Hart is playing. Let's see. I mean, this is what I will say. If he's playing, it's because he got clearance from the medical staff. Like, this is not in high school where the coach is like, yo, you playing. You know what I mean? If he's playing, it's because the medical, so I know everybody ready to get on tips. The medical staff must have cleared him. Anyway, until next time, family, where we at?
Salute everybody.
Salute.